So today we're going to talk a little bit about women's health. So I'm going to start with a story about my friend. So she once told me what it was like to live in her body over the course of a month. She said for the first week or so, she feels really good, clear-headed, motivated. Her body feels really strong. She can tolerate stress more. And then nothing really dramatic happens, but she starts feeling more impatient, more tired. And then another week or so goes by, and she said, I just start getting so bloated. I start feeling more sensitive, more tired. My sleep isn't as good. And she starts wondering, what is wrong with me? Why am I mad at everybody and everything? Can you raise your hand if you have any idea of what I'm talking about, a female experience? Okay. Yes. So this is often what it's like to have a cyclical body. Now, she told me about this in the context of her workouts. She said she'd feel really strong for about a week or so, and then she'd start dragging herself through her workouts and eventually just start cramping through them. I started hearing this story again and again from other women, and I also experienced versions of this myself. There were even these viral videos online about it. So women would take electrodes and put them on men's stomachs to simulate period cramps, and then they'd give them a pair of dumbbells and tell them to start squatting while they're having period cramps, which obviously didn't go very well. The women thought it was very funny, which tells us something very obvious, is that women are wonderfully adaptable. But when our fitness doesn't accommodate for these very normal natural cycles, then we end up having to override our body's signals and end up having to push harder than necessary. I think most of you would agree that working out is hard enough. We don't need to make it harder. So fortunately, there is another way that we're going to talk about today. So I shared about this concept in a big online fitness group. I said I started training in a way that worked better for my female body. And the responses are interesting, as you can probably understand on the internet. So initially, a lot of the women were saying things like, I love this idea, this makes so much sense, please, I want to know more. And then the other responses came in. And those responses were more like, from a kinesiology standpoint, this is false. Women don't need to train differently than men. This is clueless. This is unscientific. And essentially, this is ridiculous. Why are we talking about whether women need to train differently than men? The good news is, we weren't having a discussion about whether strength training is valuable for women. At this point, most people would agree that it is. What we were really talking about was whether women are allowed to honor their bodies' differences without guilt, without shame, and without being told we're doing it wrong. Most women are already in a quiet war with their bodies. They have usually been fighting their bodies most of their lives, sometimes since they were little girls. But we don't thrive with guilt and force. We don't thrive with just pushing our body all of the time. We thrive with care and attunement towards ourselves and our bodies. So if fitness has ever felt like punishment, then perhaps there was a mismatch. And perhaps the mismatch is that we've been following programs that weren't actually built for our female bodies. So this might also sound familiar to you. My female clients will say something like, I followed the same plan as my husband or boyfriend. He lost 20 pounds. He looks amazing. He got a great bum. And I'm over here dragging myself to the gym again. I'm exhausted, I'm starving, and the scale went up. Which raises the simple question, is what happens when women stop forcing their bodies to perform like a man's and start working with how they actually function? So this is the interesting part here, is that the majority of research on diet and exercise has historically been conducted on male bodies. Only 6% of sports science research has been conducted exclusively on female participants. But women are different. We have these monthly cycles. We can get pregnant. We become perimenopausal. We go through postmenopausal. As Stacy Sims would famously say, the exercise physiologist, women are not small men. Instead, I like it, I know. Instead, we can learn to work with our female physiology. We can train in a way that respects our cyclical nature, our energy, and our long-term health. So at the heart of this approach is going to be strength training, good strength training. So strength training is not optional for women, not if we care about aging well and also decreasing our disability later in life. Strength training is powerful and it is protective for us. One of my mentors once said, "You think lifting weights is dangerous? Then try being weak, because without resistance training, our muscle mass and our strength decreases substantially with age." You can think of strength training like a preventative medicine for us. And if you want to change your body composition, then nothing really gets the job done than strength training. So today, I'm going to show you how women can strength train just 2 to 3 days a week in a way that, again, respects their cyclical nature and allows them to still get results while working a little bit less. Why make it harder, right? So the first part of this is called progressive overload. So progressive overload just means that we're going to be continually challenging the body. We're going to add more, keep progressing. This is not muscle confusion. This is not doing random workouts on a fitness app or on YouTube. I'm happy if anybody's working out, but progressive overload is a little bit more simplistic, and it's measurable, and it's quite repetitive. We do a lot of the same movements. I was gonna gently demonstrate a few of these movement patterns that I think many women benefit from doing. You guys ready? I was gonna show you a couple of these movements. In a dress, I know. All right, let's just applause to that. Okay, so these are your main movement patterns that you wanna focus on. So number one is a squat. Most of you are familiar with that, so squatting. This involves lunges and step-ups, very similar. It's kind of an umbrella, our squatting patterns. We have hinging, deadlift, picking things up off the ground. Can also be done on one leg. We have pushing patterns, it's number 3. So anything like a bench press or a push-up, pushing away. We have pressing, anything over your head. That's our next push pattern. So that's number 3, pushing. Pulling, look familiar, your row, right? Rowing. We have pulling this way, so lat pull down, or a chin up. We have carrying, so that could be you carry things to your side. You carry a weight at your chest, or at your shoulder, right? Many different ways to carry. And then, of course, what most people know, stabilization, which is actually anti-movement because we're resisting motion when we stabilize. So over time, we want to make these exercises a little harder. We stick to these general movement patterns, we make them a little harder. We progress. We add reps, we add load, we add a little more volume. But this is the part most women need to hear, is that adding more all the time, like we're often told, more, is not actually the best way to get results. And this is why. So strength training is a stressor by nature. We apply stress to the body, it adapts and it gets better. But we are only as strong as our ability to recover from that stress, right? Recovery is key. And this is where it gets interesting for women. Because we have a monthly cycle, or some of us have a monthly cycle, we might experience things like low energy, not sleeping as well, pain, and a lower tolerance to stress. For some women, this is very subtle. They don't notice it very much. For other women, it is really unmistakable. Their cycles are nightmarish. So instead of just putting the pressure on them to force through and having all of this guilt and shame around their fitness, or instead of just not doing anything at all, right? They'll feel so depleted, they don't even want to go to the gym. Instead, we can get more consistency and sustainability by applying a strategy called periodization, no pun intended. So periodization is actually a well-researched concept in strength training. Periodization recognizes something simple but powerful. is that progress does not come from pushing at 100% all the time. It comes from waiving or cycling our training stress. So again, instead of going 100% all the time, the go home or go hard, go home fitness mentality, it is against that. It is let's cycle or waive that stress. By the way, for the men in the room here, this approach, this periodization, also applies to you guys. So you guys are very strong, we know, but your bodies also adapt better with this variation in training stress rather than this constant grind. More, I gotta add more to the bar, I gotta do more workouts, right? It's really respecting your body's capacity is ultimately what it is. So here's where it fits women very beautifully. Women already have these cycles, right? They're already experiencing these ebbs and flows. What we're doing is just we match periodization to the menstrual cycle. So when we're feeling really strong in our cycle, we push harder. And when we don't, we pull back. It seems very simple, but it's actually quite nuanced in the execution of it. I was gonna share a little bit about what it actually looks like for the average woman. Okay, what does this look like to actually waive my training stress? So you probably will get a little science lesson here too on the menstrual cycle. So the luteal phase is usually when women feel the worst. You hear a woman say, I'm in PMS week, that's usually they're feeling a little bit crabby. So that's the week where they're usually not sleeping well. Again, they're not gonna be tolerating stress as well. So we deliberately pull effort back. Show up for your workouts, go through the movements that we discussed earlier, your movement patterns, but you're not going for performance, and you're not feeling guilty about it. You're showing up and working just enough. We do that for about a week, and then we move into the next phase, which is menstruation, which is when women bleed. In that phase, typically towards the latter part, women tend to find their energy improves. And during that phase, we find it's a natural place for women to start to ramp those efforts back up. More reps, more load. We go deeper into the cycle, into the follicular phase, which is where resilience, focus, and energy tend to really improve. So then we go a little bit harder, right? We're waiving that intensity and that effort. We go for more reps, more load. And then we hit ovulation, which is typically where women feel their best. They feel strong, they feel energized, they are ready for action, ready for their workouts. And during that time, we're gonna go for performance. We are gonna go to what we call our maximal perceived effort. We're really gonna push towards our personal records. And then the cycle repeats, because that's what it's like being a woman. We have these cycles, it just repeats itself. So these are patterns, they're not rules. It doesn't apply to every single woman or every single cycle. It's meant to be adaptable to your body and your recovery patterns. If you want strength training to be something sustainable for the long term and safe, then the best skill you'll learn is knowing how to adjust your training to how your body feels. Not just what some trainer tells you, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. Listen to your body, it is the best skill you will learn. So this is a female-oriented training model, right, that prioritizes our results, but also our recovery, our strength, and also our physique, based on these research-backed strategies like periodization and progressive overload. We're just applying them to the menstrual cycle so women can have a better, more attuned training experience. When I shared in that online fitness group, I don't think women responded because I was saying something really revolutionary. I think they responded because they felt really validated. I think they finally heard something their bodies were trying to tell them, that just pushing harder all the time was not sustainable or healthy, physically or mentally for them. But instead, when we can respect our body's needs, regardless of what those are, then fitness can finally become something more sustainable, safer, sane, and hopefully even enjoyable for decades to come. Thank you.